Hi my loves, welcome back or welcome to my channel. Welcome if you're new. Welcome to our first wrap up of 2026, my last reads of 2025. I was really debating whether to do this video. I was like, do we really need a December wrap up? Then I was like, actually there are some books that I really enjoyed reading this month and some really interesting reads this month that I feel like you guys would want to hear about and I want to talk to you about. I was like, you know what, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. We've got a little bit of a different setup today. I used this in one of my other videos and I really like it. So I was like, maybe our wrap ups can be in this little background. But for my month of December, I actually didn't think I read very much at all. I actually read 8 books and 2 of them were really long. Not too bad. Some of them were quite short though. Out of those 8 books, 6 of them were fantasy and 2 were thriller. I think I am entering my thriller era again. I think like this time last year I was really into thrillers and then I didn't read them for a while. Now I'm getting back into them. So we have 2 little ones to talk about today. Some very interesting reads. Can I say I read 4 out of 5 of the books on my TBR this month. If you know me, I'm not very good at sticking to my TBR, so that is very good improvement from me. Hopefully we can carry that same mindset into 2026. I love reading books off my TBR, just sometimes other books turn up and I want to read them more, so it's very difficult. Some of these I did do reading vlogs on, but all the reads to the end of the month I of course didn't because I was kind of taking like a little break. So without me yapping anymore, let's get into the books. The first book I read in the month of December was Of Flame and Fury by Michaela Bridge. I was so proud of myself for reading this because I have put this on multiple TBRs and I just keep avoiding it. And yes, this was put on my TBR again and I actually got to it this time. So very happy about that. Michaela Bridge, I learned, is actually a Melbourne-based author, which is where I live. So that's really cool. I love reading like local authors. This book is set around the idea of phoenix racing. Phoenix, our mythical creatures, are used in a kind of modern dystopian type world as creatures used to race, and you usually like ride them. There's usually a whole team involved in the racing actually. One that looks after the phoenix, one that actually races the phoenix, one that does all the media for the team. It took me a little bit to get my head around the world that we were set in because when you think about phoenixes, you think about like, I don't know, mythical beings. So I kind of was like, oh, it's going to be like an old time kind of book. No, this was a lot more modern than I thought. I think I would classify it as an urban fantasy. It's a little bit confusing, but they do have like phones, they have apps, they have paparazzi, they have a very strong media presence. So I would say that it is an urban fantasy. Like it's definitely set in our modern world, just with mythical creatures and magical elements. We are following Kel, who works as part of a racing team, a phoenix racing team. The phoenixes in this world though have to wear a collar which basically dims their magical abilities and makes them only be able to perform to a certain extent, because apparently if they go to their full abilities, like their full power, they could be deadly, destroy the world, everything like that. Everyone's very scared of it. One day Kel is working in a race and a phoenix gets out of its collar. Her and Coop, her like mortal enemy, basically work together to bring it down and capture it again and make sure everyone is safe and sound, nobody is hurt. This starts going viral on the internet basically, and a mysterious tech billionaire comes out of nowhere and is like, I want to recruit you guys and I want to offer you guys a place at my training facility for phoenixes. So we follow our 2 protagonists and a few other side characters. There were a few plot twists that did get me in this. However, the thing with this book is it fell a little bit flat for me because I loved the premise of this. I loved the plot, all the creatures, but I wanted more. I wanted more phoenixes. I wanted more phoenix racing in general, and I wanted to learn more about our world because in the beginning of this book there is like a little glossary kind of thing and they talk about the different types of phoenixes. So like particular phoenixes are more intelligent than other ones. Like I believe the Cinder Phoenix is a very intelligent breed, whereas Harrow Phoenix is the least intelligent, but they're very easy to domesticate. So I would have loved to explore this a little bit more. I wanted to learn more about this whole phoenix world. We only touched the tip of the iceberg. I feel like there was so much more we could have learned about. There were also a few plot points that I was kind of a little bit confused on, and the ending I felt good about, but then it was also a little bit ominous. Like I wasn't really sure what happened. So yeah, there were elements that I loved about this book and elements that just weren't my favorite. So I ended up rating it a 3.5 stars. I love the idea of it. The execution though I feel like could have been a little bit better. However, this is a debut author. Michaela is a debut author. So I think there is a lot of promise for this, and I definitely will read more by her in the future. Next, we moved on to Strength of the Few by James Islington. This had come out a few weeks before and I was just waiting and waiting not so patiently to read this, to finally get to it. I read The Will of the Many a few months before this came out and I was very happy I read it so close to the release date of this because I don't think I could have waited a year after that ending. Oh my gosh, this, okay, straight off the bat, 5 stars. This was incredible. Really hard to talk about this book without spoilers, but of course I will. What makes it so hard to talk about is the fact that it is just an incredibly complicated idea and like set up for the second book. The ending of the first book creates this really complicated situation for our main protagonist. And I was just so shocked at how this was going to be executed. I was like, how is this going to make sense reading it? I was terrified going into it because I thought it was going to be so complicated. James Islington executed it in the most masterful way. Whilst it did take a little bit for me to get my head around it, and you definitely had to be like switched on whilst reading this book, I understood it. I was so ready to be like rereading everything and just like reading this at an extremely slow pace and taking my time with it. But honestly, it was so addictive. I could not put it down. I needed to know where our characters ended up. I needed to know where this story went. It was just so masterfully executed. I can't explain it. There was one or two things that I was like, oh, this could have been like maybe a little bit better. But honestly, the fact that I understood this so well and it was so addictive in such a complicated setting was incredible. If you don't know what this series is about, the Hierarchy series, in the first one, we are following Viz, who is an orphan. He gets adopted into this very high up family. In this world, we are ranked via willpower. So the more will you have, which is like physical and mental strength, the higher you are on our hierarchy pyramid. Viz is very low, but then he gets adopted into a more higher ranked family, and they want him to go undercover to the academy to basically kind of find out some information for them. So he goes undercover as a student. He has to train to kind of get into this academy, and at the academy you basically are trying to master your strength. There are different classes, and the higher you graduate, the higher ranked you will be. This is one that I cannot recommend enough. This is like an incredible book. The first book was a 5 stars. This book was so easily a 5 stars. I cannot get my head around how good it is. I cannot wait for the next one to come out, but I don't think it's coming out until 2027. So I probably will do a reread of this series, to be honest, before the next one comes out, because I think I'll need to. There is so much detail in these books that I think a reread will be necessary before the next one comes out. But if you were intimidated to start this series, this is your sign. Please, please, please do. It is one of the best series I have read. I am so glad I started it last year. It takes a little bit to get your head around the whole like will system, but once you do, you will be off, and it is so easy to read. James Islington is such a talented author, and oh my god, I definitely need to read more of his series because I do know he has another high fantasy series, so I want to delve into that one very soon. This was a bit of an emotional week, honestly. I next decided to start A Storm Beyond the Sky. For some bizarre reason, I don't know, I was feeling brave. After finishing that and being left baffled and like, oh my gosh, just jaw on the floor, I was like, yeah, let's go and finish the other series that I'm incredibly emotionally attached to as well. So this is the 4th book in the Ember Quartet. You guys know I started this series at the very end of last year, and I continued it throughout the year, and finally we finished it. If you don't know what the Ember Quartet is about, I cannot recommend it enough, first of all, but we are following Leia, and her brother gets found out that he is aligning with the rebels. This is Leia's only living relative, basically. Her parents have passed away, and so when her brother gets captured for aligning with the rebels and taken into the prison of this like castle, I guess, Leia sees no choice but to go undercover as a slave into that castle to try and find her brother. We are also following Elias. We have multiple POVs, and he is a soldier training in the academy and hopefully training to be the next emperor? Is it that? I get really confused with all of our different magical worlds because some have kings, some have like royals, like I guess that's the same thing. Some have emperors, some just have leaders like rulers, some have prime ministers. Like, I don't know. It gets really, really confusing. So I think it's an emperor. Anyway, those are the characters we are following. So this series so far has been immaculate. It's been wonderful, but I haven't had a 5 star from it. I wasn't sure if this was going to be a 5 star. And then the last, I want to say 200 pages of this book, I was like in tears. This was a rough ride. This was a really, really rough ride. Emotions were all over the place. I could not control them. I also think this is probably one of the best endings to a quartet I have ever read. This truly wrapped up everything so incredibly well. I didn't know how it was going to. We had 100 pages left and I was like, how is everything going to be okay? Is everything going to be okay? And I feel like it was wrapped up in the best way. Something I've been really appreciating recently in, I guess, older series, like with the City of Brass series, are endings that don't feel the same as every other fantasy book you read, if you know what I mean. Endings that feel realistic but very fulfilling, very, I guess, wholesome in a way, but yeah, as I said, realistic. Like, not everything is necessarily what you imagined it would be, whether that's, I guess, a happy ending. Sometimes we have like these ominous kind of endings, but in a good way. I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like it was a theme for a while in slightly older fantasies, like from, I don't know, 2015 vibes. Anyway, this was wonderful. Wish I could talk about this book in full spoilers, but this just genuinely broke me, and and I was on the edge of my seat. Last half of this book, I was on the edge of my seat, and yeah, easy 5 stars. So after reading those 2 crazy books, I was like, I'm gonna pick up a quick little thriller. So I picked up The Ex-Wives Club. This is by Sally Hepworth. I haven't read anything by her before, but this was on Kindle Unlimited, and it's like a little thriller novella. Basically, we are following a murder of a man who's been married many, many times, and he owns a restaurant. At this restaurant, every Friday, all of his ex-wives meet and have a table reserved for them at his restaurant. So it's a little bit odd. We're basically following the detectives trying to solve who possibly could have done this. It was good. For a novella, it was good. There were just a few moments that I didn't love by Sally Hepworth. Like some moments where there was like some fat shaming and stuff, and I was like, is this really necessary? I don't know. It was the writing style that I didn't love. The actual story was good. Not too much to say on this one. I feel like it was just kind of if you need a quick little thriller, like a little novella thriller, it's fun, I guess. So I ended up giving it a 3 stars. I feel like that's a generous rating, but it wasn't necessarily bad. It was just short and like so quick, so it kind of is very short-lived in my mind, and I can't like say too much on it, I feel. We went on to another novella after that, a very much longer novella. I think this was like 240 pages or something, and that was Edge Dancer by Brandon Sanderson. A lot of you had suggested, and every reading order I've seen suggests reading Edge Dancer in between Words of Radiance and Oathbringer. As you guys have seen, I'm picking Oathbringer for my January TBR, and I had kind of like wanted to read it very soon, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna read Edge Dancer so that I can go on to Oathbringer whenever I'm ready. Edge Dancer, we are following, I don't really want to say who we're following. No, I probably can. We're following Lift. You won't know her unless you see her in Words of Radiance, so it's fine. We are following Lift on her story. I'm not going to talk about it anymore, about the actual plot, because it's such a short book, and it does kind of give minor spoilers, I guess, for the Stormlight Archive. So yeah, we're following Lift, and this was the cutest book. Lift is a very young character, and the way Brandon Sanderson puts you in her mind, he makes you feel like you're 13 again. Like reading from a 13-year-old's perspective, and it's like, yeah, this is how you would act as a 13-year-old in this situation. But it was great. I loved being back in our Cosmere. Honestly, a really, really good novella. I gave it a 4 stars. There wasn't much I could fault. Obviously, it is a novella, so there wasn't really the traditional fantasy storyline, I guess. We didn't have this like major climax or anything like that. Like there was a few kind of high stakes moments. Yeah, it was more like getting to know our character, seeing a role she might possibly play, I'm guessing, in the rest of the Cosmere. And I do think there was some important facts drawn upon in that are going to be explored further in the next book. So if you are in your Way of King's journey at the moment and just read Words of Radiance, I highly recommend reading Edge Dancer. It's also really nice to read like a short book from Brandon Sanderson for a change, because that doesn't always happen. We all know that that doesn't always happen. The next book I read was The Princess Knight by Kate Jacobs. Now, I was really excited to read this one because number one, the premise is really fun. It is basically a Legally Blonde retelling, or inspired by Legally Blonde, set in medieval times. So amazing premise. And Kate Jacobs is actually like an original booktuber. I used to watch them on booktube back when I like was in high school, I guess. They really introduced me to booktube, to be honest, and I absolutely love their book taste. Like I remember they love Six of Crows, so that was pretty much what got me on them. They have very similar taste to me. So just when I saw that they were releasing a book, I was like, that's so exciting. You wrote a book. Oh my God. This was just a really fun read. That is the best way I can describe it. I do wish I was younger when I read it, because I truly think this would have been my personality if I read it when I was younger. So if you are younger or just love a really sweet kind of fantasy romance, I think you would really enjoy it. We're following Princess Clea. She is meant to be put into this arranged marriage that she's kind of quite happy about. She's known this prince since she was quite young, and he is a prince to a kind of aligning kingdom. The idea between this marriage is so that the kingdom can ally with each other for a potential war on the horizon, or if any war comes to these kingdoms, they can ally with each other. It's like a political alliance, I guess. However, the prince decides that he doesn't want to marry Clea because she just cares about dressmaking, and she's not serious enough, and she's not a fighter, she's not politically aware enough. Basically just says, no, you're not smart enough for me. I want somebody smarter and more well-trained for this situation. Clea is actually a very smart character, but she is extremely offended by this. The prince is off to this training academy to kind of train him up for the potential war on the horizons, and it's basically like this training academy that you go to be an incredibly good fighter or political leader. Clea's like, I'm gonna follow you to this academy and I'm gonna work my butt off and prove you wrong. So it's great. It is literally Legally Blonde, but in a medieval time. I did really like it. There were some moments that I was a little bit bored. I did read it so quickly. I think I read this in under 24 hours though. Great atmosphere. I do have a lot of good to say about this, but there was also just a kind of sense of surface level. I think think because it is a YA novel, we didn't get too much depth to our characters and to our world, but I would have loved a little bit more depth. I would have loved a little bit more magic and maybe a little bit more intensity. Like if the stakes were a little bit higher, I would have absolutely loved that. I did love the romance. I thought it was really cute. I just wanted higher stakes. So I was just a little bit more hooked on it, a little bit more intrigued. But overall, a really great debut. I really hope they write more, honestly. I would so read it. So easy to read. This is the chick flick version for fantasy readers. It's great. Next, I found out that there was a few books by Frey McFadden I actually hadn't read, and I'm gonna go read them very soon. But the first book was The Perfect Son. I don't know why I hadn't picked this one up. I'd kind of heard like mixed reviews on this one. I love a Frey McFadden novel. I read them in a sitting pretty much because they're so addictive, and I need to know if I guess the plot twist right or what's going to happen. Sometimes I read her books and I have no idea what the plot twist is. Like I will have no idea and never see it coming. I'm kind of getting familiar because I've read so many of her books. I'm kind of getting familiar with her plot twists. Anyway, this was The Perfect Son. Basically, our main protagonist is the mum of this young boy who has kind of shown signs of being a sociopath. He isn't really in tune to people's emotions. He doesn't really understand why you get so, why you're so emotional about things, I guess. And in his past, there's been a few signs that he may be a sociopath. So she's worried about her son just in general. But one day, a young girl goes missing, and her son is known to be the last person who saw her alive. So it's basically a murder investigation that we are following from the perspective of the mum, and it's really, really interesting. I actually really liked it. However, I did guess the main plot twist. So I was a little bit disappointed by that. Sometimes I'll guess the main plot twist and then there'll be another one that I don't see coming, but for this, I did guess them. So I was a little bit disappointed, but it was still a really, really addictive book. As I said, I read this in a night, so highly recommend if you're in a reading slump. Always will recommend Frey McFadden. I gave it a 3.75. So still a really good thriller. Definitely one that I would recommend from Frey McFadden, but not my favorite by her. Okay, the last book I read in 2025, actually. Finished this on New Year's Eve. So literally the last possible second I could have finished it. You guys are gonna be so proud of me. I read Crescent City. Crescent City 3, House of Flame and Shadow. Do you know how long this has been on my TBR? Since it came out. Since it came out, it has been on my TBR. So my backstory for the Crescent City series. If you happen to not know what this series is about, it is an urban fantasy series by Sarah J Maas following Bryce Quinlan, whose best friend in the very beginning of the book gets murdered, and then all these dark secrets and magical secrets start to come to light. I really enjoyed the first book in this series. I did not enjoy the second book. I felt like nothing happened until the last 100 pages. This one I actually enjoyed a lot more than I was expecting to. I don't know if it was because I went in with smaller expectations. I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I was going to. So where the second book ends, it's like an incredibly high stakes moment, and I can't believe it's taken me this long to get on with the series after that ending. It was a great start to the book. Like it was a very straight into action, straight into it, no time to waste, and I was right back in the world. I will say, do you want to see what I had to do? I had completely forgotten about half of these characters. So I went on little wiki fandom and I wrote myself a bunch of sticky notes at the front of this book on every single character, or at least the key characters, who they are, how they're related to anyone, or what magical abilities they have, if that was a key point. So yeah, that helped. Once I'd gotten my head around all the characters, I was chilling. I was fine. Overall, I enjoyed it. I think I'm gonna give it a 4 stars, so a pretty good rating. Honestly, better than I expected. In saying that, I always feel like these books could be like 200 pages shorter. And also the perspectives, they change so quickly. We're here, we're there, we're here, we're there. And like, it's great, but also I don't spend long enough with our characters to form a really deep connection to them. Like none of these characters in this series I'm incredibly connected to. Like even in Throne of Glass, there were so many that I loved, but I just feel like I don't spend long enough with each character, or I don't know. Yeah, I'm confused. I will say I don't like Hunt. I really don't like Hunt. I think he has a 2D personality, and that's just me. But yeah, Bryce definitely grew on me in this book. Our main protagonist, she definitely grew on me. So that was great. And I really liked our villains in the story. Honestly, it's a very magical world. I feel like we have every single magical being, mythical creature, everything possible in this world, which is, I find fun. I find it really fun, to be honest. And I forgot that, like when I was reading it and I was reading about all these different, like we have the mer people and everything like that. I was like, I forgot that there were so many different people. Like, we have the different houses, and within those different houses, shall I just read them to you? So in the House of Earth and Blood, you have shifters, humans, witches, ordinary animals. In the House of Sky and Breath, you have angels, fae, elementals, spirits. In the House of Many Waters, you have river spirits, mermen or merwomen, water beasts, nymphs, like so many. And then in House of Flame and Shadow, you have reapers, wraths, vampires, dragons, necromancers. Yeah, it's crazy. It's literally crazy. So many different types of magical beings. And I think that's my favorite element of this, and probably why I rated it quite high, because the characters themselves I'm not obsessed with, but the world I am obsessed with. I really, really enjoy this world. So if you've been on the fence about whether to continue this series or not, I would say it's worth it. But it's definitely a little bit of a slog at times. Like, it's definitely very long. I also don't know what I thought of that ending. Like, it was good, but it kind of felt similar to other endings I've read by her. So yeah, I don't know. I have like mixed feelings, but overall I did enjoy it a lot more than I thought I was going to. So I guess that's a good thing. That was everything I read in the month of December. An interesting reading month. A very up and down reading month, but it was good. But yes, fresh start now, start of the new year. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. If you have stayed all the way to the end though, it truly means so, so much to me. So thank you for being here. I love you all so, so much, and I will see you in my next video.